Bicycle Company, created and owned by John Marston, started manufacturing cycle cars in 1901, with prices starting around 130 pounds. Sales were in the hundreds, making it quite successful for the time. By 1903, they had moved up full four-cylinder powered cars, providing 12 horsepower and costing just over 500 pounds, and then to a 16-horsepower six-cylinder car the next year, leading to the separation of the Sunbeam motor cars as their own entity in 1905. Starting in 1909, the company would transition to building everything in-house instead of relying on outside suppliers, and would soon be building purpose-built race cars under the belief that racing improves the breed, which helped them become a major manufacturer in Britain, to the tune of 650 cars a year. During the First World War, they would begin building commercial trucks and aircraft, leading to early use of a single-block aluminum engine. But both John and his planned successor and son, Roland, died in 1918, and in 1920, Sunbeam was sold to Darracq to create STD motors, or Sunbeam Talbot Darracq, although attempts were made to keep the three marks independent of each other. Sunbeam would see some of its most successful models in the late 1920s, such as the 3-liter, aimed at the Bentley of the same name, using a dual overhead cam inline 6, providing 93 horsepower on an 130-inch wheelbase. But the Great Depression hit the company hard, and Sunbeam was in receivership by 1934, putting an end to the brand. However, the company was taken over by the Rootes Group, who would continue the Talbot cars, although they would quickly begin sharing components with other, cheaper Rootes brands. Sunbeam was supposed to return as a luxury brand, but in 1938 the two brands were combined as Sunbeam Talbot and moved into a more reasonably priced field, starting with the Talbot 10 becoming the Sunbeam Talbot 10. It was 156 inches long on a 94-inch wheelbase and powered by a 41-horsepower 1200 inline 4, moving the car to nearly 70 miles an hour. But as I said, the plan initially had been to bring Sunbeam back as a luxury brand, and there were some short-lived luxury models, including the 3 and 4-liter models. They were 188 inches long on a 118-inch wheelbase and 3,300 to 4,000 pounds with 88 or 100 horsepower. More successful, however, was the 2-liter, introduced in 1939, which was 159 inches long on a 98-inch wheelbase and 2,500 pounds, producing 52 horsepower. It and the 10 would carry the company into the late 1940s, with combined sales being over 11,000. Styling was updated for 1948 on the Model 10, and output increased to 47 horsepower to make it the Model 80, and it got a more powerful 64 horsepower 2-liter version as the Model 90. They were 168 inches long on a 98-inch wheelbase. The 80 was dropped after 1950, while the 90 got a bump in horsepower to 70. Then in 1952, it gained a bigger 2.3-liter with 77 horsepower, and a roadster version called the Alpine, which was more powerful with 80 to 95 horsepower, pushing it to speeds near 100 miles an hour. Horsepower climbed to 80 in 1954, when Talbot was dropped from the name, making the Model 90 the Sunbeam Mark III. It would continue through 1957, but was effectively replaced in 1955 by the Rapier, which was 160 inches long on a 96-inch wheelbase, using a 1.4-liter inline 4 with 60 horsepower, and in 1956 gained a twin carburetor version with 68 horsepower. One was tested with a price of just over 1,000 pounds, reaching 86 miles an hour and getting nearly 31 miles per gallon. The car would also be spread across other Rootes brands, becoming the new Hillman Minx and the Singer Gazelle. The Rapier got a facelift in 1958, getting a more traditional grille and moving the shifter from the column to the floor. The engine grew to 1.5 liters, increasing horsepower to 73, and improvements for 1959 included another 5 horsepower increase. And there would be a new 2-seat Alpine that year as well. Priced under 1,000 pounds, it was 155 inches long on an 86-inch wheelbase, only weighing 2,200 pounds. It used the same 1.5-liter inline 4, producing 78 to 84 horsepower, and top speed was near 100 miles per hour, with the quarter mile being just over 19 seconds. In 1961, a rare coupe version was introduced as the Harrington, with a finless Le Mans version, raising the price an additional 500 pounds. At the same time, the Rapier saw another string of updates, increasing engine capacity to 1.6 liters and horsepower to 80. Roots had developed a replacement for the Rapier, but there was late restructuring, and the car instead became the Hummer Scepter. But it would soon return to Sunbeam in a sportier form as the Venezia, 177 inches long on a 101-inch wheelbase, and weighing 2,400 pounds. It was powered by a 94 horsepower version of the 1600, but it was not terribly fast and priced in the range of a Jaguar, so slow sales quickly killed it off. Starting in 1963, the Alpine was offered as the soft-top ST or as the hardtop GT, and taking inspiration from Shelby, it gained a Ford 4.3-liter 260 V8 for 1964 to become the Sunbeam Tiger. With 164 horsepower, it did a 16-second quarter mile and approximately 120 miles an hour. Changes in company focus had the Hillman Imp also rebadged as the Sunbeam Imp in an effort to boost sales. And 1965 saw an engine upgrade to 1.7 liters, providing 91 horsepower in the Rapier and 99 horsepower in the Alpine. By 1967, more than 7,000 Tigers had been built, and it would upgrade to a 4.7-liter 289 with 200 horsepower, edging it into the low 15s. But it was the Tiger's last year, so few were made, and the Alpine itself would be discontinued the following year. And there would be a new Rapier as part of the Roots Aero line of cars, which had actually appeared as earlier export versions of Sunbeams, using the names and the sedan styling from other Roots divisions. The Rapier, however, was a two-door fastback version. As such, it was 175 inches long on a 99-inch wheelbase and weighed 2,300 pounds. The 1.7-liter carried over and was rated at 94 gross horsepower, but a sportier H120 version was soon offered with 108 horsepower, which made it a high 17-second car with a top speed over 100 miles an hour. And the Alpine name would return as a budget version of the same car with only 80 horsepower. Also around this time, the Stiletto was introduced, a coupe version of the Imp. It was 139 inches long on an 82-inch wheelbase, weighing 1,600 pounds, powered by the 875cc inline 4 with 55 horsepower. But Roots had been struggling for a while, and Chrysler started taking stock in the company in 1963, and had effectively taken over the company by this time. So for 1970, the Roots Group became Chrysler Europe, when Sunbeam would get a version of the Hillman Avenger, taking on the name of its engine size, as the 1250, 1300, 1500, and later the 1600, providing 60 to 88 gross horsepower, or 53 to 79 net. The Stiletto was dropped after 1973, but otherwise the line continued on mostly unchanged until 1976, when the Sunbeam brand would come to an end, and the cars would start to be rebadged as Chryslers. But the Sunbeam name didn't go away exactly. Instead, it was applied to a small hatchback as the Chrysler Sunbeam, a replacement for the Imp. It was 151 inches long on a 95-inch wheelbase and weighed under 2,000 pounds. Engines were 1, 1.3, and 1.6 liters, with 42 to 69 net horsepower. In 1979 added a sportier TI version with 100 horsepower, making it a mid-17-second car, able to reach close to 110 miles an hour. But Chrysler was in trouble of its own and selling off assets, including Chrysler Europe, which was sold to PSA, and the cars would be used to revive the Talbot name, although only for a short time. Sunbeam could never have been described as a mainstream brand, but it did have its successes, and although it did struggle for much of its existence, it certainly had an impact over the years. So as always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment below and like and subscribe.